The Galactic Empire had stretched its influence across countless star systems, subduing and integrating species that dared to oppose them. Earth, in the eyes of the Empire, was nothing more than an insignificant planet, a minor nuisance on the outskirts of their expanding territories. They expected minimal resistance from a species so young, one that had only recently ventured into the vastness of space. The order was given. There would be no grand invasion, no show of military might. Earth didn't deserve that. Instead, the Empire deployed their most feared assassins, a race bred for this very purpose. These beings, the Drak, were cold and calculating, masters of silent warfare. No one ever saw them coming, and no one survived their approach. Where other species had armies, the Drak were ghosts, slipping through defenses unseen and leaving devastation in their wake. Their mission was simple: destabilize Earth's governments, eliminate key leaders, and weaken their defenses. Once the infrastructure was shattered, the Empire would easily absorb the planet, adding yet another world to its collection. The Drak did not view this mission as a challenge. Earth was just another target, and its inhabitants would crumble like all the others before them. The Drak arrived on Earth silently, their ships invisible to human detection systems. In the dead of night, they landed in remote locations, avoiding the more densely populated areas. Their plan was meticulous. They would strike political and military leaders first, crippling Earth's ability to respond. With chaos reigning, they could then pick off any remaining resistance, ensuring a swift victory. The Drak fanned out across the globe, each assassin moving with precision toward their target. They were armed with advanced weaponry, silent energy blades, cloaking devices, and neural disruptors capable of rendering any human helpless in seconds. Their confidence was unshakable. They had done this countless times, across countless worlds. Earth would be no different. But humanity was unlike any enemy they had faced before. The first few assassinations went as expected. Political figures and high-ranking military officers were taken out with ease, their deaths going unnoticed for hours. But then, something changed. The Drak began to encounter resistance, not from the military, but from something far more dangerous. Their mission, which had seemed so simple, was about to unravel. Unknown to the Empire, humanity had been preparing for threats from beyond their planet for decades. While the Drak considered themselves masters of stealth, humans had developed countermeasures, always anticipating that their first contact with extraterrestrial life might not be friendly. The Drak had been detected almost immediately upon entering Earth's atmosphere. And now, the hunters were about to become the hunted. In the dead of night, deep within Earth's most secure military installation, a team of specialists was briefed on the alien threat. Among them was a man known only by his codename, the Boogeyman. He was a myth even among his own people, a soldier trained in the darkest corners of human warfare. For years, he had operated in the shadows, a ghost capable of dismantling entire enemy operations without leaving a trace. And now, he had a new mission: eliminate the Drak. The Boogeyman was different from the rest of Earth's military forces. He was not bound by conventional warfare. He fought on his terms, and those terms were brutal. He would stalk the assassins, study them, and then strike when they least expected it. The Drak, who had never known fear, were about to experience it for the first time. The first strike came in a remote military outpost, where a group of Drak had gathered after completing their initial objectives. They were confident, speaking in low, guttural tones about the ease with which they had eliminated their targets. But then, the lights went out. In an instant, their advanced sensors failed, plunging them into darkness. A sound, a faint whisper, barely audible, reached the ears of one of the Drak. He turned, his blade drawn, but saw nothing. The others tensed, their cloaking devices engaging as they attempted to blend into the shadows. But it was too late. The Boogeyman was already among them. The first Drak fell silently, his throat cut in a precise, brutal motion. The others barely had time to register his death before the Boogeyman struck again, moving through them like a phantom. Their advanced technology was useless against him. He knew their tactics, anticipated their moves, and used the environment to his advantage. One by one, the Drak were picked off, their bodies left in the darkness. By the time the last assassin realized what was happening, it was already over. He was alone, his comrades dead, their bodies strewn across the room in unnatural positions. Fear gripped him, a feeling he had never known before. He activated his communicator, sending a distress signal back to the Empire. But no one would come. No one could help. The Drac had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The Boogeyman stood over the last assassin, his expression unreadable. In the dim light, the Drac could see the cold, calculated look in the human's eyes. There was no mercy there, only the promise of death. The message was clear: Earth would not fall. Word of the assassinations had reached the highest levels of Earth's military command. They knew it was only a matter of time before the situation spiraled out of control. Global leaders were in hiding, military forces on high alert, but no one knew where the next strike would come. The alien assassins moved like shadows, invisible to the naked eye, leaving no trace of their presence until it was too late. Panic was spreading through the ranks, but there was one weapon humanity hadn't yet revealed. The Boogeyman was a legend, known by few, feared by even fewer who knew the truth. He wasn't part of any official unit, and there were no records of his existence. When the stakes were highest, when the enemy was unknown and the odds stacked against them, he was deployed. This time, the mission was different. The enemy wasn't human. But for him, the target was irrelevant. It was always the same: hunt, eliminate, disappear. He was briefed in silence, as always. No unnecessary details, just the facts. The assassins were fast, precise, and technologically advanced. Their strength lay in their stealth, their ability to blend in and disappear before anyone realized they were there. But there was something in their pattern, something subtle that had been missed. He saw it immediately. They weren't perfect. They had a weakness. The Boogeyman didn't need advanced technology. He had something else, an instinct, honed from years of combat in the darkest, most brutal corners of the world. He could see patterns where others couldn't. He understood how predators worked. And these assassins, despite their alien nature, were no different. While Earth's military scrambled to protect its most vulnerable assets, the Boogeyman moved in silence. He didn't operate on defense. He never had. He knew the key to winning this battle wasn't in waiting for the next strike. It was in taking the fight to them, on his terms. His first move was to locate them. Unlike the military, he didn't need complex systems or high-tech surveillance. His methods were simpler, yet more effective. He understood how to blend into the environment, how to make himself invisible in plain sight. The assassins had cloaking devices, advanced suits, but they didn't understand Earth. They didn't know its landscapes, its hidden corners, or its people. The Boogeyman knew how to track them. He started by focusing on their previous targets, examining the scenes of each assassination. To anyone else, there was nothing left, clean, surgical eliminations with no traces. But he saw the subtle signs, the patterns they couldn't help but leave behind. A shift in the way a door had been opened, a mark on the floor where a body had fallen. It was enough. He knew how they moved, how they thought. And now, he knew where they would strike next. When the Boogeyman struck, he didn't rely on brute force. He didn't need advanced weaponry. His advantage lay in his ability to understand fear. He knew how to manipulate the enemy's mind, how to use their own strengths against them. The assassins had never known fear. They had been bred for precision, for efficiency. They were cold, calculating killers. But they were not prepared for someone who could move like them, someone who could outthink them. As he closed in on the first group of assassins, he didn't engage them immediately. That wasn't his way. He watched, studied their movements, learned their patterns. They were overconfident, believing they were still undetected. They moved as if the world belonged to them, as if nothing could stop them. That was their first mistake. The Boogeyman didn't just kill his targets, he broke them down mentally first. He made them question their own superiority, made them doubt their abilities. He would leave subtle signs of his presence, nothing too obvious, just enough to unsettle them. A flicker of a shadow, a slight sound where there should have been silence. They would look, but they would see nothing. That was how the fear began. Once he had them on edge, the real hunt started. One by one, he would isolate them, forcing them into situations where they had no advantage. Their technology, their training, it all began to fail them. In the dark, in the chaos, they were no longer the predators. They were the prey. The Boogeyman didn't stop. He didn't let up until every last assassin was gone. It wasn't just about killing them. It was about sending a message. They had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, expecting to strike fear into the hearts of humans. But they had been wrong. They had unleashed something far worse than anything they could have imagined. When the last assassin fell, the message was clear. Earth wasn't just another planet to be conquered. Humanity wasn't weak, wasn't defenseless. They had a weapon far more terrifying than anything the Galactic Empire could have anticipated. They had the Boogeyman. The first assassin had fallen, and now the Boogeyman was in full motion. He moved swiftly, with the efficiency of someone who had done this countless times before. The remaining Drac assassins, once so confident in their abilities, now found themselves second-guessing their every move. They had been bred for precision, their missions executed flawlessly on countless worlds, but none of those planets had prepared them for this. The Drac weren't used to being hunted. They were the hunters, always. Yet now, with one of their own gone and no trace of who or what had done it, their confidence began to erode. They started moving in tighter formations, relying more heavily on their advanced cloaking devices and sophisticated tracking systems. But the Boogeyman understood something they didn't: fear was the most effective weapon. He used it to his advantage at every opportunity. A sound here, a glimpse of movement there, nothing direct, nothing obvious. Just enough to keep them on edge. It was working. He watched as the assassins began to lose their composure, their flawless coordination slipping. Small mistakes, tiny errors in judgment, began to appear. They hesitated when they should have moved. They scanned the darkness when they should have advanced. The Boogeyman knew he had them right where he wanted them. The next strike came without warning. One of the Drac, separated from the group by only a few meters, disappeared into the shadows. There was no sound, no struggle, just a brief flicker of motion, and he was gone. The others didn't see it, but they felt it. The tension was palpable now, fear setting in. They had lost another one, and still had no idea who or what was targeting them. Their technology was useless against this kind of warfare. They had advanced scanners, heat signatures, motion detectors, none of it mattered. The Boogeyman didn't rely on the kind of predictable tactics they had trained for. He was using the terrain, the environment, and their own fear against them. The assassins tried to regroup, pulling back to a more defensible position. They set up countermeasures, devices designed to detect any movement, any sound. But the Boogeyman wasn't going to come at them directly. He didn't need to. He had already won half the battle by getting inside their heads. He watched them from a distance, reading their movements, anticipating their next steps. They were unraveling, their tactics becoming more reactive, more desperate. They were relying on their technology more than ever, convinced that it would save them. But that was their second mistake. The Boogeyman waited for the perfect moment. He knew that timing was everything. When he struck again, it was with ruthless precision. Another Drac dropped silently, his body disappearing into the darkness. The others scrambled, but it was too late. The Boogeyman was already gone, melted back into the night. They were left with nothing but their fear and another missing comrade. By now, the Drac were no longer thinking like the elite assassins they were trained to be. They were thinking like prey. They began to make decisions out of desperation, not strategy. They split up, hoping to cover more ground, hoping to find their invisible enemy. But all they did was make themselves easier targets. The Boogeyman had been patient up until this point, but now it was time to finish the job. He moved quickly, methodically, taking out the remaining assassins one by one. Each kill was as silent as the first, and each one added to the growing terror that gripped the survivors. The final Drac, the one who had been the leader of the squad, was the last to fall. He had watched his entire team disappear around him, and now he was alone. He activated every defensive measure he had, scanning every inch of the area around him. But he knew deep down that it was over. The Boogeyman wasn't a soldier or an assassin. He was something else entirely. He wasn't playing by the rules of warfare that the Drac had come to master. He was playing by his own rules, and there was no defense against that. The Boogeyman didn't make a sound as he approached the last Drac. There was no final showdown, no dramatic confrontation. The Drac never even saw him coming. In the blink of an eye, it was over. The Boogeyman had completed his mission. As the final assassin fell, the message was clear: Earth wasn't like the other planets the Galactic Empire had subdued. Humanity wasn't just another species waiting to be conquered. They had their own monsters, their own ways of fighting back. And the Boogeyman was living proof that humans weren't to be underestimated. The Galactic Empire had sent their best, and their best had failed. The Drac had been defeated not by superior numbers or advanced technology, but by a single human who understood fear better than any of them. The Boogeyman had done more than just eliminate the threat. He had turned the tables completely. Now, the Empire would think twice before sending their forces to Earth again. They had wanted monsters, but they hadn't realized that humanity could become far more monstrous than anything they had ever imagined. The Boogeyman slipped back into the shadows, his mission complete. The world would never know what he had done, and that was how it was supposed to be. With the last Drac assassin eliminated, a brief silence settled over the battleground. The Boogeyman had done what no one expected. He had turned the tide of an invasion without ever being seen, without any witnesses to speak of his victories. The Galactic Empire had failed in its attempt to crush Earth from within, and now they would face the consequences of underestimating humanity. Back in the Empire's strongholds, confusion and disbelief rippled through the ranks of command. Reports had come in, vague and fragmented, detailing the complete disappearance of their most elite assassins. There was no communication from the team, no signs of success, just silence. The Drac had never failed a mission of this scale before. To the Empire, Earth had been a mere afterthought, a planet so small and insignificant that they hadn't deemed it worthy of a full-scale military engagement. They were wrong. The leaders of the Galactic Empire, used to dominating and controlling countless worlds, were now faced with something unfamiliar: fear. Their prized assassins, bred for precision and superiority, had vanished. Their best technology, tactics, and strategies had failed them. They had sent monsters to Earth, expecting to terrorize its population, but it was Earth that had produced the real monster. The Boogeyman had done more than just eliminate a threat. He had dismantled the Empire's entire perception of human weakness. The message was clear. Earth wasn't a passive world, waiting to be subdued. Humanity was capable of responding in ways that the Empire had never anticipated. And more terrifying than that, humanity was willing to fight back with an intensity and ferocity that rivaled anything the Empire had ever seen. They had expected a simple conquest, but instead they had been given a lesson in the true nature of survival. Earth had unleashed something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Word spread quickly through the inner circles of the Empire's military. Rumors of a human soldier, one that moved like a ghost, one that eliminated the Drac without ever being seen, began to take hold. Whispers of the Boogeyman echoed in the corridors of power, and for the first time in their history, the Empire hesitated. They had conquered dozens of species, crushed rebellions without a second thought, but now, they found themselves questioning their next move. What else was humanity hiding? What other weapons, what other horrors, lay dormant on that small blue planet, waiting to be unleashed? As the days passed, the Empire quietly pulled back its forces from the outer regions near Earth's system. They had no intention of admitting defeat openly. Such an act would be unthinkable, but their actions spoke volumes. Earth, once considered ripe for the taking, was no longer on their immediate radar. The cost of another encounter with humanity was too high, too uncertain. The Boogeyman had made sure of that. Back on Earth, there was no celebration. No parades, no public acknowledgement of what had transpired. The Boogeyman's work was never meant to be known. It existed in the shadows, carried out by those who understood the necessity of secrecy in warfare. The assassins were gone, the threat neutralized, but to the general public, life went on as if nothing had happened. That was how it had to be. For the Boogeyman, there was no reward, no recognition. His mission was complete, and that was enough. He returned to the quiet corners of the world, where his existence remained a myth, a whispered rumor among those few who knew the truth. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't looking for praise. He was simply a weapon, one that Earth had called upon in its time of need. And when the next threat emerged, he would be ready, waiting in the shadows. But the Empire wouldn't forget. The Galactic Empire, with all its might and technological superiority, had learned a harsh lesson. They had underestimated Earth once, and it had cost them dearly. Now, Earth stood as a symbol, a reminder that even the most advanced forces in the galaxy could be brought to their knees by the cunning and resilience of humanity. The Boogeyman had shown them that the true strength of humans didn't lie in their numbers, or their technology, but in their ability to adapt, to survive, and to fight in ways that no one saw coming. The Empire would remember. They would spread the story of the Boogeyman in hushed tones, warning their own soldiers of the dangers of Earth. They would speak of the faceless ghost who took down the Drac without leaving a trace, and they would fear the day they had to face humanity again. For they knew deep down that when that day came, they wouldn't be facing armies or fleets. They would be facing something far worse, something born from the darkness, something that understood the true nature of warfare. The Boogeyman had given Earth a reprieve, but more than that, he had given humanity a new reputation across the galaxy. Earth was no longer seen as weak, no longer just another planet to be dominated. It was now known as the home of a force that could turn the tables on any enemy, a place where nightmares were born. In the quiet aftermath of his mission, the Boogeyman faded into the background, leaving behind only the echoes of fear he had instilled in his enemies. His job was done, for now. But the galaxy had been warned. They had sent their monsters, and in return, humanity had shown them what real monsters looked like. And so, the Boogeyman waited. For the next challenge. For the next threat. Ready to strike again when the time came, when Earth called upon him once more to remind the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated.